The courtroom doors hadn't even opened yet, but the tension was already thick enough to choke the air. Reporters whispered like they were afraid the walls might hear them. Cameras hummed softly, red lights blinking like warning signals in the dark. Outside, the crowd pressed against the barricades, phones raised, waiting for the smallest spark to explode into chaos. Inside, something far more dangerous than noise was about to break loose. A single voice was preparing to shatter everything the public thought they knew. Just hours earlier, the video appeared without warning. No announcement, no countdown, just a quiet upload that sent shockwaves through social media in seconds. In the dim light of a private studio, the country's most controversial commentator leaned into the camera, eyes cold, voice steady, and said the words no one was ready to hear. She claimed she finally knew why the prime suspect's wife had been sabotaging the investigation into her husband's mysterious death, and what she hinted at was far darker than anyone imagined. Fans are shocked. Timelines exploded, group chats went silent, then erupted. Emotions ran high as people replayed the clip again and again, analyzing every pause, every breath, every subtle shift in her expression. This wasn't gossip anymore. This sounded like a warning. At the center of it all was a woman the public thought they understood. Elegant, guarded, always composed. The widow. To the cameras, she was grieving. To the courts, she was cooperative. To the fans, she was either a victim of unbearable cruelty or the key to a secret no one wanted exposed. But according to this explosive reveal, she had been quietly pulling strings from the shadows, delaying evidence, redirecting attention, and quietly dismantling the very case that was supposed to bring her husband's killer to justice. Behind closed doors, sources whispered that federal agents were furious. One investigator allegedly slammed his file shut and said, "Someone on the inside is burning our trail." Another source claimed a crucial witness suddenly changed their statement after a mysterious late-night meeting. Coincidences piled up too neatly. Doubts grew too loud. Meanwhile, inside the family's mansion, grief had turned into suspicion. Arguments echoed down marble hallways. Siblings who once stood united now avoided each other's eyes. One relative allegedly shouted through tears, "We buried him once, and now we're burying the truth too." The family was left divided, split between loyalty and fear. And then came the final twist of the video. The commentator paused, lowered her voice, and hinted that the sabotage wasn't just about protecting a reputation. It was about protecting a secret so devastating it could collapse every alliance connected to the case. Political deals, hidden financial ties, a promise made long before the death that changed everything. As the video ended, one question burned across the internet like wildfire. Was the widow a grieving wife, or the most dangerous player in this entire game? Because if these claims were true, the investigation wasn't just compromised, it was being controlled, and the truth everyone was waiting for might be buried deeper than anyone ever imagined. The night the video went live, the phones inside the investigation wing never stopped ringing. Every screen showed the same paused frame, the same frozen expression, the same two words, spreading like poison across the internet. Sabotage. Investigation. Inside the building, agents moved faster, voices low but sharp, doors opening and closing with sudden urgency. Evidence that had sat untouched for weeks was pulled back out. Sealed files were reopened. One senior analyst whispered that the case had just been reset to day one. Inside the widow's home, the atmosphere was suffocating. The curtains were drawn, even though it was barely evening. Lights stayed dim. The house that once echoed with parties, business meetings, and late-night laughter now felt hollow, its walls heavy with secrets. She stood at the window for a long time, phone pressed tightly in her hand, watching the headlights of passing cars like they were predators circling in the dark. Her lawyer had already called twice, her publicist 3 times. She had ignored them all. In another part of the city, her brother paced back and forth in his apartment, the same video playing on repeat in the background. Every time the commentator's voice dropped into that quiet, dangerous tone, his stomach twisted. He knew things, not all of it, but enough to understand that the story being hinted at was much bigger than the public realized. He picked up his phone and typed a single message. "Are you watching this?" It delivered. It stayed unread. Fans are shocked, but inside the family, fear ran even deeper. A cousin slammed his fist on the dining table during an emergency family meeting that same night. "You said everything was under control. You said the investigation was routine. You said there was nothing to hide." His voice cracked at the end, half rage, half desperation. Nobody answered him. Eyes dropped. The widow kept her gaze fixed on the polished wood in front of her, fingers folded so tightly her knuckles had turned white. One aunt finally whispered, "This was never routine. It never was." Outside forces were closing in too. Former friends started deleting old posts. Business partners quietly suspended contracts. Invitations that once arrived daily stopped altogether. The silence wasn't peace. It was the sound before impact. At the station, an investigator replayed the commentator's reveal for the 5th time. Isolating background sounds, reading lips, noting every subtle inflection. "She's not guessing," he muttered. "She's signaling. Either someone fed her this, or she's daring someone to stop her." And then the first leak hit. A blurry photo surfaced online, allegedly taken weeks before the death. It showed a private meeting in a dark restaurant corner. 3 figures. One of them unmistakably the widow. Another identified by internet detectives within minutes. A mid-level official connected to evidence handling. The third face stayed hidden in shadow. By morning, that official's name trended worldwide. By afternoon, he was placed on administrative leave. Inside the widow's home, accusations exploded. "You met with him, didn't you?" her sister shouted, tears streaking down her face. "Don't lie to me. You met with him?" The widow finally looked up. Her voice was quiet but sharp as glass. "I met with many people. That doesn't make me guilty of anything." "Then why is everyone losing their jobs around you?" Her sister fired back. "Why do witnesses keep changing their stories? Why does every trail lead back to you?" The room went silent. Even the ticking of the clock felt deafening. Miles away, the commentator sat in another studio, recording again. This time her words were even colder. She claimed her sources were inside both the legal and the political worlds. She hinted that what the public saw as obstruction was actually a carefully designed shield. Someone wasn't just hiding the truth. Someone was trying to run out the clock. The more she spoke, the more the internet leaned in. Emotions ran high as supporters and critics clashed online. Some defended the widow fiercely, calling her a grieving woman, being hunted for clicks. Others called her a mastermind, living 2 lives. The division was ruthless. Friendships ended in comment sections. Families argued over dinner tables. Behind the scenes, another secret was stirring. A former close friend of the deceased, long believed to be irrelevant to the case, suddenly contacted investigators late one night. His voice reportedly trembled as he spoke. He told them he had stayed quiet for years out of loyalty. He said he was promised protection. He said the promises were now broken. And then he said the widow wasn't just reacting to the investigation. She had known it was coming long before it began. He claimed that weeks before the death, she had predicted the exact sequence of events. The raid, the headlines, the narrative split. She had allegedly told him, almost casually, "When this starts, it will look messy, but it will never reach the core." Investigators froze when they heard that word, core, because that was the word used in a sealed internal memo that had never been made public. Inside the family again, the fractures widened. Her mother, once her fiercest defender, finally broke down in the kitchen late one night. "I raised you better than this," she sobbed. "Tell me you didn't plan any of this. Tell me you didn't know." The widow stood still, eyes empty. "I planned to survive," she said. "That's all." Those words cut deeper than any confession. Another leak followed. Then another. Bank records showing strange transfers tied to shell companies. Encrypted messages between unknown numbers. Travel logs that placed key figures in the same cities on the same nights. Coincidences stacked like bricks, building a wall no denial could climb. The commentator released another clip. Shorter, this time, but deadlier. She claimed the sabotage wasn't just about hiding responsibility. It was about buying time until a final move could be made, a move that would permanently seal the truth away. Inside one tense late-night family confrontation, her younger brother finally snapped. "What is the end game?" he screamed. Her younger brother finally snapped. "What is the end game?" he screamed. "Do you think this just goes away? Do you think the internet forgets? Do you think the dead stay quiet forever?" The widow's composure cracked for the first time. Her voice rose. Her hands trembled. "I'm already buried with him every day," she shouted. "You think I don't feel this? You think I don't wake up terrified? Then stop trying to control everything." He yelled back. "Stop treating us like collateral damage." They stared at each other in silence, both shaking, both exhausted. Outside, the world kept investigating. Old footage resurfaced. Forgotten interviews were re-examined. Body language was dissected. Every smile, every pause, every tear became a clue to millions of armchair detectives. Fans are shocked not only by the accusations, but by how quickly the image of the perfect grieving widow transformed into something far more complex and dangerous. The family was left divided between those who believed she was protecting them all and those who believed she was only protecting herself. Deep inside a locked file room, an investigator stared at a single timestamp on a forgotten recording. It didn't match the official timeline, it contradicted earlier testimony, and it aligned perfectly with something the widow had said months before the death. For the first time, he whispered to himself, maybe the real crime didn't start with his death at all. And as the pressure built from every direction, as allies vanished and enemies multiplied, the widow finally checked the unread message from her brother. Her eyes lingered on the screen for a long moment. Then she typed back, just 5 words. You don't know everything. You don't know everything. Those 5 words hit her brother like a blow to the chest. He stared at the screen, his hands trembling, his heart racing with a mix of dread and fury. What do you mean I don't know everything? He typed back instantly. Before he could send anything else, the typing bubble appeared, vanished, then appeared again. Seconds stretched like minutes. Finally, another message arrived. Because if you did, you'd be as scared as I am. He called her immediately. It rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. Across the city, inside the investigation wing, that same night marked a turning point. The former friend who had come forward sat under harsh white lights, sweat beading on his forehead as he repeated his statement again and again. He described secret meetings, coded language, warnings delivered as casual conversation. He insisted the widow had known precise details of actions that were supposed to be confidential. When pressed on how she could have that information, his answer was simple and devastating, because someone powerful was feeding it to her. That single sentence lit a fire inside the room. Agents began tracing every connection the widow had ever had to political figures, legal intermediaries, and private security firms. Patterns emerged fast. Too fast. Multiple intermediaries linked back to one source embedded deep inside oversight. Someone who had access to sealed warrants. Someone who could delay a search by days with one signature. Someone who could redirect attention with a single phone call. Inside her mansion, the widow sat alone in the dark, the glow of her screen reflecting in her eyes. She scrolled through the chaos she had helped ignite without ever speaking publicly. Her name trended. Her face, split opinion, half saint, half villain. She exhaled slowly and whispered, "They're finally looking in the right direction." In another house across town, her mother couldn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table, clutching an old photograph of her 2 children as kids, innocence frozen in time. The grief of losing her son-in-law had already carved deep lines into her face. Now the suspicion surrounding her daughter was carving deeper ones. She replayed every conversation from the past year in her head, searching for signs she might have missed. A strange comment about timing, a warning disguised as a joke, a sudden insistence that certain people be kept close. The division inside the family grew vicious. Cousins refused to attend gatherings. Siblings stopped answering each other's calls. One aunt publicly defended the widow on social media, calling the investigation a witch hunt. Another relative replied, just minutes later, accusing her of protecting a monster. The argument went viral. Fans are shocked not only by the accusations, but by how publicly the family turned on itself. Inside the studio, the commentator prepared another broadcast. Her producer hesitated before the red light blinked on. "You're crossing dangerous lines now," he warned. She looked straight into the camera. The dangerous lines were crossed long before I ever spoke. On screen, she revealed another fragment. She claimed the widow's sabotage was not impulsive or emotional. It was strategic. She alleged that the widow had been promised something in return for her silence and obstruction. Not money, not protection, but power. The internet erupted. Emotions ran high as theories exploded across every platform. Commenters dissected the idea of power like it was a riddle. Political leverage, control over an inheritance, influence over an untouched industry. Speculation ran wild. But one thing became clear. Whatever the widow was allegedly protecting was bigger than her own reputation. Deep inside a restricted archive, an analyst uncovered a dormant file tied to an offshore account once linked to the deceased. The trail was cold, cleaned years ago, but a digital fingerprint remained. A transaction that happened just 48 hours before his death. A transaction that required authorization at the highest level. The analyst froze when he saw the approving signature. It wasn't the deceased. It didn't belong to the widow either. It belonged to someone who now sat in a position of public trust. At nearly the same time, the widow received an untraceable call. She answered without speaking. The voice on the other end was calm, almost bored. "Things are accelerating," he said. She replied quietly, "I warned you this would happen." The voice paused. "Then you were supposed to slow it down, not ignite it." She closed her eyes. "Maybe the fire is the only thing that will protect what you asked me to protect." The line went dead. Inside the investigation wing, A senior officer slammed his hand against the table in frustration. Every time we move forward, we hit a wall that shouldn't exist. Someone is still guiding this from the shadows. And the widow. He hesitated before finishing his sentence. The widow is either our biggest liability, or our only way in. That question divided the task force just as deeply as the case had divided the family. Under pressure, the former friend expanded his statement. He described a night months before the death when the widow had invited him to her home after midnight. She told him the world would soon be very loud. She told him to stay quiet no matter what he heard. He laughed at the time, thinking she was speaking metaphorically. Now he wasn't laughing anymore. She knew he would die. One investigator said under his breath. No, the friend replied. Shakily. She knew something would break. She just didn't say whose blood would be on the floor. News outlets began reporting conflicting narratives. Some framed the widow as a grieving woman unfairly targeted by conspiracy. Others portrayed her as the architect of a cover-up that went all the way to the top. The more uncertainty spread, the more dangerous the truth became, because uncertainty created space for manipulation. Inside the mansion, a confrontation exploded between the widow and her father. "You think you're smarter than everyone," he roared. "You think you can dance with powerful people and come out clean?" She stood her ground, tears forming but not falling. "I did what I had to do to keep this family alive." He shook his head in disbelief. By trading one life for another. Silence followed that accusation. It hung between them like a sentence already passed. Outside investigators' offices, protesters gathered. Some demanded justice for the deceased. Others demanded the widow be left alone. Signs clashed in the air. Chants collided in the streets. The case was no longer just legal. It was cultural. It was emotional. It was political. Fans are shocked by how quickly a private tragedy became a public battlefield. Late one night, the widow finally met her brother in person. They chose a quiet place far from cameras. His eyes were red from exhaustion. His voice cracked the moment he spoke. "Tell me the truth," he begged. Not the public truth. Not the lawyer truth. The real truth. "Did you sabotage the investigation?" She stared at him for a long time. Then she said, "I redirected it." He recoiled as if struck. Redirected it to protect who? To protect the part of the truth that would destroy more lives than it would save. She whispered. His anger surged. "You don't get to decide that," she answered with devastating calm. "Someone already did. And I was given the choice to cooperate, or to disappear with everything I love." He shook his head in disbelief. "So you chose them over him?" Her eyes filled. "I chose us over ashes." Unbeknownst to them, that meeting was not as private as they believed. A vehicle parked across the street sat idling in the dark. Inside, a figure listened through encrypted channels, recording every word. Inside a secure room at dawn, investigators listened to the intercepted audio. The phrase redirected, it echoed like a confession and a warning at the same time. One agent leaned back in his chair and exhaled slowly. She's not just obstructing. She's navigating. The question now was where she was navigating the investigation toward. And somewhere in the city, a powerful figure reviewed fresh intelligence and smiled. Somewhere in the city, a powerful figure reviewed fresh intelligence and smiled. Faintly. As long as the widow remained in the center of the storm, the core would remain untouched. For now, the storm intensified. The very next morning, the widow woke to the sound of helicopters chopping through the air above her home. Before she could reach the window, her phone erupted with alerts. Warrants issued. New evidence submitted. Emergency court session scheduled. She exhaled slowly, as if she had been expecting this moment all along. Across town, her brother sat in his car outside the quiet cafe where they had met just hours earlier. His hands trembled on the steering wheel as he watched agents swarm the widow's property on the news feed playing on his dashboard screen. Her voice echoed in his head. "I redirected it. Not stopped it. Not buried it. Redirected it." The meaning of that word now felt heavier than anything she had ever said before. Inside the investigation wing, the intercepted recording was being replayed again and again. Analysts isolated every breath, every hesitation, every overlap in the widow's dialogue. The word cooperate triggered an internal alert. Investigators began building a new theory, one that terrified even the most seasoned among them. If she had been forced to cooperate, then the real architect of this sabotage was still completely hidden. Fans are shocked as the narrative suddenly flipped. Overnight, public opinion split into 3 camps instead of 2. Those who believed she was guilty, those who believed she was framed, and now, those who believed she was trapped. Inside the family, the chaos reached its breaking point. The widow's sister barricaded herself in her room after being confronted by reporters at her workplace. Her mother collapsed from exhaustion, grief layered on grief. Her father, once a pillar of strength, now wandered the halls of the mansion like a stranger, muttering to himself about mistakes and warnings he never took seriously. And in the middle of it all, stood the widow, silent, guarded, and impossibly calm. At precisely noon, her attorney arrived with a face drained of color. "They've expedited the hearing," he said quietly. "They want you on the stand today." Her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. On the stand. That meant questions. That meant lies under oath would collapse like paper. That meant silences would scream louder than words. "Do they have enough to arrest me?" she asked. "Not yet," he replied, "but they're close, very close." Inside a private federal office, the powerful figure who had been feeding her information reviewed the same news with quiet irritation. The storm was moving faster than predicted. Resources were mobilized immediately. Calls were made. Favors were quietly cashed in. But something felt off. The widow was no longer simply playing her role. She was evolving inside the chaos. In the courthouse, cameras lined the steps. Reporters shouted questions like gunfire. Flashbulbs stuttered as the widow stepped from the vehicle. Her face showed no fear, only fatigue. Her brother watched from the edge of the crowd, unable to reach her, powerless to protect her. Their eyes met for less than a second. In that glance was everything left unsaid. Inside the courtroom, the air felt electric. The prosecutor began gently at first, questions about routine communication, about schedules, about meetings. The widow answered carefully, choosing each word as if it weighed tons. Then the tone shifted. "Did you ever instruct anyone to delay evidence processing?" the prosecutor asked. "No," she replied. "Did you ever request that certain witnesses be classified as unreliable without formal review?" She paused, then said, "I requested caution. Caution is not delay." The prosecutor pressed. "But delay is exactly what occurred, isn't it?" Objections flew. The judge restored order. Tensions rose with every exchange. And then the intercepted audio was played. The courtroom froze at the sound of her own voice echoing back at her. "I redirected it." A murmur rippled through the audience. The prosecutor leaned forward. "Redirected what, Mrs. Kirk?" She closed her eyes for a heartbeat, then opened them. "The narrative," she said quietly. "The narrative of what?" he demanded. "Of where the spotlight went." The courtroom erupted. Fans watching the live feed exploded online. Emotions ran high as the meaning of her words spread in real time. "Redirected away from whom?" the prosecutor asked. She hesitated. Her attorney whispered urgently. She lifted a hand to silence him. "Away from the people who would not survive the truth," she finally said. That answer only deepened the mystery. Inside the investigation wing, senior agents watched in disbelief. That wasn't a denial. That was an admission wrapped in protection. Meanwhile, the former friend who had come forward was rushed into protective custody as threats began flooding his phone. His fear was palpable. "They're getting closer," he told his handler. "If they figure out who the core really is, they won't need me anymore." Back in court, the prosecutor pivoted sharply. "Did you receive guidance from any public official regarding your involvement in this investigation?" The widow's jaw tightened. "No direct guidance," she replied. "Did you receive indirect pressure?" Another pause, longer this time. "I was reminded," she said carefully. "That power does not like to be watched." A ripple of shock rolled across the courtroom. The judge leaned forward. "Remind us by whom?" She looked toward the gallery, scanning the crowd of faces. Politicians, donors, legal observers, unknown figures in expensive suits. "Someone high enough that naming them would prove my point," she said. The hearing was abruptly recessed moments later. Outside, chaos exploded. Reporters shouted. Analysts speculated. Supporters rallied. Critics screamed for arrests. The family was left divided in full public view. Back inside a secure office, the powerful figure closed the live feed and stood slowly from his desk. "She's gone off script," he said calmly to the man standing behind him. The man replied, "She's becoming unpredictable." "Unpredictable is dangerous," the figure murmured. "Dangerous for everyone." Inside the widow's holding room, her brother finally reached her. He grabbed her hands through the narrow table gap. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "You're burning everything." She met his eyes. "No," she said. "I'm forcing them to choose." "Choose what?" he asked. "Which truth they'll allow to live," she replied. He shook his head. "They don't negotiate with truth. They erase it." She gave him a weary smile. "Then let's see if they can erase me with it." Elsewhere, inside a dim parking structure, the vehicle that had recorded their earlier meeting idled once more. The masked figure inside reviewed today's courtroom footage on a tablet. The widow was no longer just a shield. She was becoming a threat. Orders were quietly transmitted. Oral only. No digital records. No delays. Late that night, the widow returned home under escort. The mansion was nearly dark. Electricity cut in several wings for security reasons. She walked its halls like a ghost. Every portrait on the wall felt like a witness. Every shadow felt like an accusation. She stopped in the study where her husband once planned his future. She traced her fingers along the desk where he had signed contracts, made calls, built empires. Her breath trembled for the first time since the investigation began. "I tried to save you," she whispered into the empty room, just not in the way anyone understands. At the same time, in protective custody, the former friend received an alarming piece of information from his handler. "Someone attempted to access your sealed testimony tonight, with authorization that shouldn't exist." The friend's blood ran cold. "They're already trying to rewrite me out." Inside Digital Crime Labs, analysts discovered a forced access attempt on archived surveillance tied to the core transaction. The attack was sophisticated, precise, and terrifyingly quiet. Someone was scrubbing the deepest layers of the case in real time. One agent muttered, "This isn't sabotage anymore. This is erasure." Outside, fans are shocked as news of the attempted evidence breach leaked. Hashtags surged. Theories exploded. The case had now entered a phase where truth and deletion raced side by side. Inside the mansion, the widow's phone lit up with a single unknown text. "You were supposed to protect the core, not expose it." She stared at the message for a long time, then typed back just for words, "I never promised silence." Across the city, her brother felt a sudden chill crawl through his body for no reason he could explain. At that exact moment, the vehicle that had once stalked them shifted locations, pulling silently from its shadowed corner and disappearing into the maze of city lights. And deep within the power structure guiding this chaos, a decision was being finalized. If the widow continued to bend the narrative instead of burying it, then the narrative would be corrected permanently. If you've made it this far, then this story is no longer just something you watched. It's something you're now a part of. You've seen the power plays. You've felt the tension. You've watched truth and control collide in real time. But the most dangerous part of this entire story is still ahead. And what happens next depends on how loud this conversation becomes. Because silence is exactly what the hidden hands behind this chaos are counting on. Ask yourself this: do you believe the widow is a mastermind pulling strings from the shadows? Or a trapped pawn forced to choose between impossible evils? Do you believe the investigation is being protected or poisoned? Do you think the core will ever be exposed? Or will it be erased forever before the world gets the full truth? Your answer matters more than you think. Right now, people with power are watching the truth. Your answer matters more than you think. Right now, people with power are reaction. They are measuring outrage. They are tracking attention. They are calculating how fast the public forgets. And every like, every comment, every share becomes a signal they can't control. That's why your voice is not just noise in this moment. It is pressure. It is leverage. So don't just watch this story. Engage with it. Type your theory in the comments. Tell us who you think is really orchestrating the sabotage. Tell us if you believe the widow is protecting lives or protecting a lie. Tell us what you think the core truly is. And if you feel even a fraction of the tension that still hasn't exploded yet, then make sure you are subscribed before the next reveal drops without warning. Because what comes next may change everything the public thinks it knows about this case. New evidence is surfacing. New voices are preparing to speak. And the people trying to erase the truth are moving faster than ever. When the next leak hits, you do not want to find out late. You want to be here the moment it breaks. Hit the like if you feel the pressure building. Hit subscribe if you believe there is more being hidden than revealed. And most importantly, comment your theory right now, because the truth doesn't survive in silence. It survives only when people refuse to look away. You are now inside the storm, and the storm has only just begun.